1. Before I talk about this, some backstory is that growing up, my parents never entertained the idea of paranormal activity or ghosts. They would always tell me to say my prayers whenever I felt uncomfortable. I have always been able to feel energy around me, and I am a very intuitive person. Growing up Christian, I never allowed anything to come in the way of that, and I myself never thought much of ghosts or supernatural beings. Deep down, though, I knew that there was truth in them, as there have been things that happened to me as a child that I just cannot explain. Until recently, however, when I had a whole crisis about my religion, and I stopped going to church and stopped praying as much as I used to. Not that I don't believe in God, I just hated the brainwashing that used to happen at my church. Anyway, at the start of the pandemic, I had a friend who was a very spiritual person, and still is, although she doesn't practice as much anymore. She would do tarot readings and give me details of my life, and the people around me if I asked her for it. At this time, I began to discover spirituality for myself, and I was obsessed with tarot readings on YouTube, although I never practiced myself. This friend would give me more information, and I found myself becoming more interested in it, to the point where I started becoming more aware of my surroundings and wondered to myself if those things that happened to me as a child were things that I imagined, or if they actually happened. Regardless of those things, of note is the ongoing inexplicable incidents that occur in my dorm room, and the constant nightmares and weird feelings I get at night. I'm a university student, and in late 2021, I moved back into my dorm, after being home during the pandemic. We had classes as usual, but whenever I came home, I would always realize that my cupboard door would be open, even though I would have closed it for the majority of the day. The door to my cupboard has a metal locking, so it cannot be opened unless force is applied, and my windows are always closed for privacy, so there's no wind that would blow it open. Additionally, when I would study at my desk, my cupboard doors would creak, or my bed would creak as if someone had just sat on it. Being a very logical person, I initially passed this off as a building being very old, or something to do with the pipes, and honestly, I just chalked it up to me imagining things, but these things also started happening when another one of my friends would come over. I told her about it because it was freaking me out and would only happen at night. The way my room is oriented, my bed is against the wall, so when I sleep, I can either face the wall or face my desk and have my back against the wall. I usually tend to sleep in the latter position because I would constantly feel a tickling or prickling sensation on my back, and it would prevent me from falling asleep. I would feel a presence if I ever fell asleep facing the wall, or sometimes my entire scalp would get the same prickling sensation. I would feel absolutely insane when this happened and wondered if there was something wrong with me in terms of my health. But after constant searching, I could find nothing. This would only happen at night, never during the day, if I took a nap, and it would never really happen if I spent the night at my parents' house. Only in this room, and it freaks me out because it still happens sometimes. I ended up telling my friends about it, and they believed me because weird shit happens to them too. So now for the scary part. Recently, I've been having terrible nightmares, and I've been waking up between the hours of 3 to 5 a.m., and I would wake up gasping or wake suddenly. Previously, there have been nights where I would wake up in the middle of the night for no apparent reason, even though the room would be dead silent and dark. In one of these nightmares, I dreamt a white-tiled floor, and somebody that I knew getting their head bashed in, and there was blood everywhere, and it was so red against the white tiles. Or in another dream, I felt as though I was being choked and couldn't scream. I thought this was sleep paralysis. Until last night, however, which is when I had the idea of making this post. I had just finished studying with my friends, and I was extremely exhausted, as I had already had a long day. I was laying in bed replying to messages and just scrolling for about 10 minutes, and suddenly I felt this presence above me, and it was leering down at me with a smile on its face. It was black and shadowy with long, spindly fingers. I didn't actually see this thing. I don't know how else to describe it, but I knew in my mind's eye what it was, and it freaked me out, but I was too tired, so I hid under my blanket and fell asleep and didn't wake up till about 7 a.m. So a third friend, who stays on my floor, who has seen and heard ghosts before, tells me she had really bad nightmares last night, and tells me each of the 3 dreams she had, and I was shocked because she explained that she never really had nightmares in the past, but last night she felt something in her room and was unable to sleep. So for real, I'm freaked out now. Not really sure what to do and how to protect myself. Any suggestions? 2. Keys. I've had many paranormal experiences throughout my life, and even some unexplained experiences that make me question my own reality. If you want to hear more of my experiences, just let me know. I'm an open book. I called this one Keys for a very specific reason. When I was in high school, my longtime friend group would hang out regularly on the weekends. During one specific year, we used one house as our hangout spot. One member of the friend group had just moved into this house, and his mom let us do whatever we wanted. For the sake of his privacy, we can call him Dustin. The other members of the friend group were not there for this occasion, so their names do not matter right now. I had an experience at Dustin's house that has stuck with me to this day. Many experiences, actually, but this one in particular. I was at Dustin's house one night, along with his younger sister and his cousin. We were all sitting in his living room, all sharing space on a giant beanbag he owned. We were all excited that night because Dustin's mom had decided to stay at a friend's house that night, so we had the house all to ourselves. It seemed like a normal night until suddenly, we all heard what sounded like a window breaking. It sounded like it was coming from Dustin's little sister's room. Then it sounded like someone was tearing through the room, throwing things all around and breaking things. Dustin's little sister and cousin began crying and screaming immediately. In a panic, Dustin and I ran to his sister's room, completely unharmed. We busted open her bedroom door, expecting to be greeted with whoever had just broken into the house. However, we were greeted with a room that was completely clean. Nothing was out of place, and the window wasn't broken. We thought that maybe we mistook what room had been broken into. We proceeded to check every room in the house, only to be greeted with the same thing. No windows had been broken, and there was nobody else in the house. We were understandably confused by this. The 4 of us huddled together on the beanbag once more to console one another. And that's when I heard it. The sound that would completely change my perception of the paranormal. Of course, I didn't know at that moment that this sound would have such an impact. It sounded like a set of keys being dropped on a table in his kitchen to our left. I jumped up to investigate, but once again, I found nothing. The rest of the night was uneventful, but we couldn't sleep. The next day I told my mom about what happened. She entertained the idea and listened to the story half-heartedly, that is, until I mentioned the set of keys dropping. That made her eyes go wide, which obviously concerned me. She told me that she needed to tell me something. She told me that when she was in high school, some of her friends were a bit unsavory. Not only was she close friends with a practicing witch, she even dated a Satan worshipper. It may have been a rebellious teen choice, seeing as how she was actually very religious. He even asked her to join in on a seance or a ritual of some kind. She sat in a circle with him but refused to say anything. She told me that during the ritual, things began flying around the room and scared her so bad that she ran out and never talked to that guy again. She said that she felt as though something may have followed her through. She said that she always felt like she was being watched, and as if something was always creeping up behind her after that. So, She told her friend that is a practicing witch about this event. Her friend told her that a demon may have tried to attach itself to her and that she needed some sort of protection. Her witch friend told her that she could help her attach a protective entity to her. So her witch friend performed a ritual of her own. Obviously, my mom didn't make the best decisions. After the ritual was over, her witch friend told her that the entity was with her and would always be, that he would protect her from any evil spirits that may intend harm. She then told my mom that she would know if this entity was present because he would make himself known. She said that you would know if he was there if you heard the sound of keys jingling, and that his name was Keys. When my mom told me that, I felt ice in my veins. I obviously wondered if I had heard Keys there that night at Dustin's. However, if he's attached to my mom, then why would I have heard him? Does he protect her and everything that belongs to her? I would ask if he's even real. It just seems like too scary a coincidence. What could I have heard if it wasn't Keys? Why did we all hear someone or something absolutely tearing Dustin's little sister's room apart, only to suddenly stop, with everything still in its place? Let me know what you guys think. 3. When I, a 29-year-old male, was growing up in the UK, we lived in a normal terraced house. This comes into the story later. So, we had a 2-bedroom house, and I hated my bedroom. I always felt uneasy and scared. Especially scared of a built-in wardrobe. The door would always open, even when I made sure it was closed. This wardrobe had my mum's things in it, plus I would hear footsteps on the landing and up the stairs, and it was a very distinctive noise. Wasn't normal creaking, and my mum would say, "Don't worry, it's just the next-door neighbors. The floorboards are all connected." Me, being young and dumb, believed that. It never got any worse than that for years, just footsteps moving around, and the door, and the constant fear. Couldn't shake it. Then my sister was born, and we needed a 3rd bedroom, so my parents turned the attic into a bedroom, which became mine. But whilst they were renovating it, the stairs going up to the attic needed to be built. And it went to the other side of the creepy wardrobe, with the partition wall that was left open and covered with a plastic sheet, and I was playing in the hallway with my 2 friends next to it, and I then got that sudden fear descend worse than ever, and the sheet of plastic shot out, like a figure had run into it. We all ran screaming, and my mum came to check, and I said what happened. I'll never forget how her face dropped, and she went white. She just said, "Don't worry. The workmen must be putting in the new windows in your room," and it made a draft. Fast forward to the attic becoming my bedroom. I was even more terrified than in my old room. The noises of footsteps coming up my stairs, a constant fear. I thought I saw a figure a few times out of the corner of my eye, never head on. And I could never sleep. It got so bad, I had to sleep on the floor in my sister's room for 2 years. Now this is the kicker. My mom is very spiritual, and what was in that wardrobe I hated. A Ouija board that she had a horrible experience with once, and said she can't get rid of it. Is that true? I'm a believer. More creepy goings-on have happened to me throughout the years. This was the worst and most consistent. We lived in the house from when I was 4 to 12, and once we moved, nothing creepy happened in the new house or any other of the houses ever again. I still feel that weird feeling in places, but never more than that. So when I was 16, I questioned my mom on it all. And she felt it all too. She heard and saw things more than me. They didn't want me or my sister to be scared. She still wouldn't say what the board said or did, but it was when she was young when it happened. Was wondering if any of you guys would know what was happening. My mom is very hesitant to talk about it in detail. 4. I'll clarify the situation and explain that I used to play piano. I won some prizes, but I admit that I actually disliked it because my mom would push me. I quit recently, in fall of 2022. Although I've done it for a long time, I genuinely wish I had quit earlier in 2019, since after that I barely won anything more than an honorable mention, but I was still pushed a lot. For any context, I'm not exaggerating at all when I say that I actually hated having to practice, and I think I really should have just quit earlier. And the lessons were 2 hours long, which honestly I don't think any normal person could handle, and the teacher was so prying with me and expected a lot, because I won prizes in the past like in elementary school. I was constantly forced to attend recitals and rehearsals and contests that I hated. The lessons, for months in fact, leading up to before I quit, were just so wrong. I think there's something more going on than just me hating these lessons. I felt physically sick and dizzy, like I was going to throw up when I came into her house, and the air was just so constricting I couldn't handle it. I broke down more than once in tears after it, and it just completely ruined my mood no matter how good of a day I had before. Also, sometimes the temperature would just either be very cold or very warm. Just extremes but no balance, and it made me super uncomfortable. It sometimes was so bad that I would also get headaches. Finally, I quit because I just can't handle it anymore. If you want to know why I endured this for so long, it was because I was afraid my GPA would be too low. I could never find a job, and piano was my only route ever, because I was at least good enough at it. Obviously, that's not true, and I definitely don't think I could handle learning it for like 6 more years and as a job without losing my mind. The day before a trip to Cancun, I kind of had to go to a recital in her house, and I just wanted to avoid it so badly. The temperature inside was just so cold, and nobody else even had that problem. Also, to travel, I decided to get a COVID test to be safe, and it came out negative. I just felt really sick, once again. The day after, I felt completely fine and had the best time of my life in Mexico. The only reason I'm writing about this now is because I forgot about it for a while. Because obviously I was on the best vacation I had ever had. Still, everything I mentioned seriously just felt extremely wrong. I doubt this is a gas leak or mold or anything like that. My former piano teacher is an elderly woman and not in the best of health, and she lives with her physically challenged husband in that house. They have been living there from before I was born, and would obviously both be dead by now if there really was a gas leak. Also, none of her other students, even those who quit like me, had any problems. And when I tried to tell my mom, she just thought I was making excuses up so I could avoid lessons. Like, just going inside the house felt so oppressive. And in case you're wondering, all of these symptoms and issues just disappeared as soon as I actually left the house. Which leads me to my conclusion. There is a demon or some evil spirit in her house. I'm even suspecting something like a kumiho, or gumiho specifically, because they can be invisible, manipulate temperature, and their one weakness is fear of dogs. After her dog died, I started hating her house instinctively, even years before all of those actual issues. That dog was like some kind of guardian from whatever was torturing me. Sadly, it was only able to live so long. My gut instincts kept telling me to just avoid this specific house. Whatever is in there just seems to sort of have it out for me. Now, even before all this stuff happened, I still already disliked having to practice piano, and honestly, this entity doesn't really change the fact that I disliked it. 5. I've been a geocacher for over 10 years, and it used to be pretty popular in the Czech Republic. Lots of people hid caches to spread awareness or to pay respects to old buildings or those who have passed. About 8 years ago, I came across a cache on my map. It was the cache of Pana Bila. Some background information. Bílá Paní, or White Lady, is believed to haunt Český Krumlov, which is a town in the Czech Republic. The legend says that the White Lady appears in and around the castle tower of Krumlov Castle, which is located in the town. The White Lady is the ghost of Perekta of Rosenborg, a noblewoman who lived in the castle during the 16th century. She appears as a white figure walking in the area, and her presence is a sign of impending disaster or death. Every geocache has instructions on where, how, and when to find them, as some can only be seen at specific times. This cache, however, came with the instruction to absolutely not go at night. It was believed that Panabila roamed the area and demands silence on her property. Being there at night would disturb her rest, and that is not something you want to be responsible for. Being the skeptic thrill-seeker that I was, I wanted to go at night anyway, because who was going to be there to stop me? A dead woman in a nightgown? Well, not exactly, but I did witness something. I was in the woods surrounding the castle. I always took my dog with me when I went into the woods. I take him for the night walk that he loves, and he scares boars away, win-win. I was using the GPS device that I always take with me during cache hunting. It was more accurate than the app back then. It was working fine until at one moment it just went a little crazy. I'm not talking about it being a little off. The game was to find the coordinates, and then you still had about a 30-meter range to actually look for the cache. So that would have been normal. I'm talking about the device sending me hundreds of meters in a direction after it just told me that I'm 20 meters away from the given coordinates. I reset it because I thought it was just an error, but it kept doing the same thing. Just every time I reset it, it was a different number. Since I was just a few meters away from the location, I decided to just count my meters, since I knew it was like 20 meters. Until I suddenly felt chilly. Note that it was midsummer, and even at night it would be around 25 degrees. There was no wind, and I wasn't tired or anything. And even if it was a wind, it would have been warm. I eventually turned my ass around after my dog started squeaking. And I'm telling you, that dog was a beast. May his kind, fluffy soul rest in peace. He wasn't scared or anything, and if there was a person or animal near at night, he would bark and growl, not squeak, and keep his tail between his hind legs. I decided to leave because I thought maybe my dog wasn't well. But I wanted to take a picture at least, because I just thought it was cool to be there at night, planning to go back during the day. I remember thinking, my battery is at 69%. I know, I'm a douchebag. Anyway, when I got out of the woods and found my car parked on the side, my dog was completely fine. He wasn't tired, hungry, or unwell at all. Not only that, I checked my GPS again, in fear of having to throw it away because it broke or something, and it worked perfectly. Lastly, my phone battery was at 20%. It's safe to say that I started to question my beliefs a little at this point, especially when I wanted to take a look at the pictures I took to see that they were corrupted. I'm posting this now because every once in a while I can't stop thinking about it. There is so much that I cannot explain, and I was wondering if anyone else may have experienced this. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Paranormal Stories, episode 317. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. I do have a little shout out to give, and that goes to the author of this second story, and their YouTube is Milltime Productions. I will include a link to that next to their story in the description. And you can head on over and take a look at the channel. Hopefully you'll find something you like. Right, I think that's everything, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is there anyone else here who, this is supplied by my moderator Ashley, also known as Potato Puff, is there anyone else here who dislikes tomatoes whole, but loves tomato sauce, tomato ketchup? Speaking personally, I'm not a big fan of tomato ketchup. I don't hate it. If you gave me a burger or a hot dog with ketchup on it, I wouldn't turn it away. But I don't buy it, because it's not something I use. I like various other sauces and condiments. I like Dijon mustard. I like garlic mayo. I like brown sauce, which I understand is only a UK thing, but it's a very tangy sauce. It's very nice. But just not a big fan of tomato ketchup. I like tomatoes in other forms. I've even come to appreciate them sliced on sandwiches in the past year or so. But just not really a big fan of them whole. Usually not raw, although as I say, on the sandwiches, as long as they're not too slimy. So let me know what you think. Please pop your answers in a comment below. And with that, I'm gonna head off for now. I'm gonna rest my voice. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.